Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far into the video, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that really helps out my channel a lot, so I appreciate it if you do that. Leave a comment too, I love hearing what you have to say. A couple of important things. One is that I now have an affiliation with Pepe Tools, which is amazing and pretty cool. So they helped me out with a new rolling mill and set me up with an affiliation link. So if you are interested in getting some cool tools, check out the video description down below the video. There's a link to Pepe Tools there for you, so you should click that and get yourself some nice tools. Today I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some earrings, and it's been a long time since I set any pearls in anything, so I thought let's do something with some pearls. I think for these ones I'm going to bezel set the pearls, which is not typical. They are half drilled, but I don't really want to do the glue on a post kind of thing for these ones. So I think I'm just going to bezel set them. And I'm going to bezel set some black onyxes down below them. So I think they'll be kind of formal looking and sort of curvy. So we'll see how they turn out. Before we get started, I wanted to thank some people. I wanted to thank my patrons over on Patreon. They're my core group of supporters who've signed up for that, and I really appreciate all of their support, as well as the nice community that they've formed over there. So it's a real nice place. The other group are my YouTube subscribers. We just passed 11,000 subscribers, which is awesome. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for the nice comments too, and the financial contributions like the Buy Me a Coffee and the Super Thanks. Those things really help with the rising costs of materials of late. So thanks for that. All right, let's get these earrings started. This is one of my design idea books, which are available on my merch store. They have a nice grid background, and I found in recent times that I get a better outcome if I do a little sketch in advance. And here's what I'm going to make today. I picked out some little pearls that are, I think, I don't even know, I didn't measure them. They might be freshwater pearls. I'm not really a pearl expert, so maybe somebody can talk about that, but those are pretty close to a 5mm. And then I have some black onyx. And these I think are 8s, so that'll be right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of 12 gauge square wire, I think, and leave it thick at this end and gradually taper it down with the file, or maybe with hammering. I haven't decided yet. And then another piece of 14 to attach here to create this offshoot swirl. And we're going to make this one a post earring, so it's going to have a post right behind that spot there. And I'm going to make one of these bezels in front of you. I'm not going to make you watch me do all 4 of them, but I'll do one for the black onyx here, and then I'll make the other ones off camera. And then we'll start working on the shaping this wire and getting it how we want it to look. So then we'll just assemble it. So that'll be our process today. For bezel, I'm going to use both of them are 3/16 inch high, but I'll probably cut them down a little bit. And then I'm going to use the 26 gauge on these ones and 28 gauge on these ones, just because I don't want to have to exert too much force. I think pearls are relatively easy to scratch, so I don't want to slip and scratch it. But you can use whichever size bezel you want. I think that's what I'm going to do though. And so let's make a bezel for this black onyx. I went back and forth about what color stones to use. I had some little char whites that were the same size I was originally going to use, with some kind of violet CZs that were faceted that would look up here, and I kind of like that look. But I did some kind of curvaceous earrings a while back that weren't designed exactly the same way. They're quite a bit different than this, but they had purple stones in them, so that's one of the reasons I did these ones as well. Okay, let me find some bezel here. There we go. Like I said, this is a slightly thicker stuff. This is 26 gauge. If you're new to this, I usually get a start on the shape by hand shaping it a little bit before I lay it around the stone to measure. This gives me a little bit of start on it. My fingers are a little clumsy to work with small stuff sometimes, so it's easier to get a head start on it like that. And we'll just tighten it up. going to make a little mark slightly over where they meet. So we have a little room to file. Let's get these lined up to solder. Solder if you're across the Atlantic. Alright. Set him over here for a moment. If you haven't been to my channel before, I use primarily hard silver sheet solder, with very few exceptions, and I use a liquid flux called My-T-Flux. I use a spray bottle generally, but one of my followers sent me this little eyedropper that works great, so I've been using that pretty frequently. Alright. This is kind of a cool little device that I got from Pepe Tools. Aha! Those of you who've been worried about me using a lighter in the past can rest easy now. Years ago, the gentleman who I learned the beginning stuff of this from, he and I spent a couple hours trying to explode lighters with a torch, and it was, I don't think we ever got a single one to blow up. They would catch on fire and burn, and the gas would burn up as it outgassed. And none of them exploded, so I've never been too seriously worried about that. Not to say that it couldn't, but I think it's harder for that to happen than some people think. Either way, be careful. Okay, let's reshape this. That's pretty good. Alright, now let's put a bottom on this. I'm just going to use a little bit of 26 gauge sheet. Let's find the corner here. I always leave a little bit extra because the hardest part about soldering the bottom onto a bezel is to get the bottom piece hot enough, because the bezel gets hot really easily being right on top like that. And if you have a little bit of lip sticking out like I left on this one, it gives you a place to focus that heat so you can pump some heat into the bottom as well. Makes it a little bit easier. Now you know what's going on when you hear that little clicking noise off camera. I'm going to put maybe three of these in there. These are like 2 millimeters, or let's do 4 just to be safe. See, when you're when you focus the heat on a bezel like this, a small one, then you can focus right around where the base of the bezel meets the sheet on the back. And usually if you keep your heat focused there as you go around it, the solder will flow and then kind of pull outwards. So you get a nice solder joint that way. I'm going to trim off the excess. Welcome to use your saw if you prefer to saw things like this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make those other 3 bezels, and then I'll be right back. So I got my 4 bezels here, and like I said, this one's going to go here, this one's going to go here, and then we're going to have the earring facing the other way for the opposite ear. And I measured this length here by wrapping a skinnier wire around that to get a kind of an estimate of how long it needs to be. It came out to be 95 or 96 millimeters. So I cut a couple of pieces of 12 gauge square. So we'll start with those, but it stays thick up here and then gradually tapers down to thinness over here. And so I think I'm going to start by filing, and then I may smooth it out by hammering a little bit. Personally, kind of find filing kind of soothing. Maybe I should put on one of these little grippy things. That'll probably help to keep from trashing my fingers, which are already trashed most of the time anyway. So. I found that if you put a taper on some wire, it really jazzes things up for some reason. And it doesn't look like you're just taking a piece of square wire and making it a different shape, you know. It adds some, I don't know, drama to it or something. Okay, I'm going to call that good. I'm going to do it on the second one. I may use my rotary tool to smooth that out before I start bending this. So I'm going to get this second one to look pretty much the same as this. And I'll be back. Got those pretty similar. So now we got to figure out how to attach these. And I think probably the easiest way would be to start curving these. And then we'll try and get that curve to match up with the outside of this bezel. And I think I'll use these bail making pliers. So we'll just start. Oh, hold on just a minute. I had forgotten to smooth out the filing that I had done earlier, so I just went and did that quickly. Okay, so we're going to kind of here. It starts right about there. It really starts to separate from the bezel. About right there. Sometimes if you grab things like this and then let the natural tension of the wire curve it, you get a nice, pretty clean curve. So we can get that started that way. kind of hold it there and see where it needs to go. Still needs to come in a little bit here. It's going to try and twist a little bit on you too, so you need to correct that periodically. Kind of marking where it needs to curve in further. That way I can kind of hold it with my pliers and try and get the curve to continue bending in right at that spot. You could probably make some sort of bending jig to do this. One or two. We're getting close to the curve here. A little bit more right there. We're getting pretty close there. Just a little tiny bit more. That's probably close enough. So now I'm going to try and get the second one to match that. And then we have to make a little 14 gauge wire that's tapered that comes off of there. So I'll cut on another piece of that, probably off camera, and file it like I did before. And then we'll just curve it and we'll add it onto there. So I'll be right back. So you can see I got these shaped pretty well, and I cut a couple of pieces of 14 gauge square, and I kind of isolated where that has to kind of merge out of here. So you have this right here. I want it to kind of like gradually come out of there, and so I'm going to need to taper it, and then I'm going to have to file that end on a particular angle in order to get it to kind of look like it's merging into that, or emerging from it, I should say. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit more filing again. Okay, I'm going to finish this off camera because this is probably boring to watch. So I've got two of these pieces tapered, and I'm going to start, make sure I have all my bezels here. I'm going to start curving it around there. This is pretty close to the size, so we'll just kind of again, it's going to try and twist on you a little bit. So I just scratched a little line where I kind of wanted it to be. Oopsie. That's pretty close. I'm going to go ahead and bend this just a little bit backwards this way so that this touches all the way to the end, and then I think I'll probably solder them together. So, although I should probably make the second one first so I get them pretty consistent. That's pretty close. I think I'm going to solder those together, and then we'll start adding bezels. Alright, I have plenty of solder there on the pad, so if you've noticed, I've been doing what's called pick soldering, which is a super useful skill that I've learned over the years. Had I known just how useful it would be, I would have learned it way sooner than I had. But if you're interested, I have a video. I'll put a link up there for you. That looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and solder those. Trying to get them to be pretty consistent as far as how far the solder runs along there. This is called a magnesia block. It's a softer surface. And I'm going to push this down in here so nothing really can move much. And I'm going to find some 20 gauge round wire and I'm going to solder it right up there. So I'll be right back. So I have plenty of solder there. I'm going to flux those. flux this spot too. Set this on a piece of solder here. Heat it up till it balls up on there. The trick is we want to make sure that this thing gets hot enough because it's much more massive than this. We want that to be hot enough for this to really get a good solid solder joint to it. Alright, we'll pickle those and we'll be back in a few. Okay, so here's one of them. I need to do a little bit of final cleaning up with the polisher, but I think that's reasonably good. This one, my little post on this one when I was polishing it broke off, so I had to come back down, solder a new one on, and then let it pickle for a while. So, and then I set everything except for this last black onyx. And I do this a little differently than some people do. I use the flat side of my needle nose or chain nose pliers to do the part that a bezel pusher normally would do. And just kind of push that up against the stone. And then after I do this, do a little bit of burnishing on the top edge. Which looks like where you take this smooth outer part and rub that. Most people use a burnishing tool to do this. Okay, so we'll shine that up just a tiny bit more and then get some better pictures. Also probably need to do a little reshaping of these because they get a little bit messed up when you're polishing sometimes. So do a little bit of reconfiguring and see how close we can get them to look like. Get some better pictures and put them at the end. Okay, well that was the curvy Pearl and Black Onyx earrings. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you leave. That helps out a lot. Also, check out a few of my other videos. I have over 300 now, and there's something for almost anyone, I think. There's beginner, intermediate, advanced kind of projects. There's different tips, and there's techniques to learn. There's all sorts of good content here. So peruse some of those, like the videos, and then subscribe to my channel so you know when more come out. The other thing is check the video description for some important links. There's, I think there's 6 links there now. There's the Pepe Tools link if you want to get yourself some really good quality tools. You should definitely click that one. And there's also a link to a video on safety. That's very important. Safety is first and foremost when you're doing something like this. There's also some other ways to support the channel. There's a Buy Me a Coffee link, which we talked about earlier. There's a merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea books or a funny mug or things like that. There's a link to my website if you want to see some jewelry I've made. And finally, there's a link to my Patreon if you want to find out more about that situation over there. So check those out. Come back and visit again. Thanks for watching. Happy silversmithing.